Hey guys, how you doing? Uncle Bob here once again with another video, and today we're going to be doing something a bit different, and because it's Christmas, this is going to be a Christmas special, and we're going to be looking at the probably you could say it's the best British sitcom of all time, Only Fools and Horses, uh, which is one of my uh, favourites, if not favourite. Watch it all the time, every year. And I watch all the so like fun and enjoyable, and I watch all the Christmases every Christmas without fail. I always watch the Christmas episodes with my family, and yeah, they're just always just so fun and awesome, and funny. And it don't matter how many times you watch them, you never get fed up with it. They're just really, really funny. And yeah, just bring a lot of laughter and joy. And yeah, it's just real, brings a real nice Christmas feel to, if it's Christmas and you're watching them and just eating sweets and just relaxing, enjoying Christmas, and just watching like Christmas specials. So let's do the so first one, it's Royal Flush. First Christmas special, I think. Yeah, I couldn't remember the actual order because I'm always watching them. Can't remember the order, but anyway, we'll do it. Start off with a Royal Flush. So Royal Flush is basically Rodney meets this posh girl down the market, gets chatty with her, and then she ends up being his girlfriend. And then she's sort of like posh, and a family sort of like aristocrats, or they're like posh people. And then he gets involved in it, and then gets invited to like posh things. And then Dell sort of comes along. He sort of basically invites himself, comes along, and he sort of don't. Rodney doesn't really want to Dell to come along, but he comes along anyway, and sort of yeah, he's sort of it's a bit awkward because he's sort of trying to impress the posh girl, and then sort of Dell's coming along and sort of, and then gets invited to this posh do, and I don't think Rodney wants Dell to come, but he comes, and it's sort of awkward. Dell's like trying to be all cockney and stuff, and yeah, Rodney's just trying to impress their family, and Dell's sort of getting drunk and sort of yeah, it's quite, but it's yeah, it's quite funny. A lot of people say that they don't really like Royal Flush. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's all right, to be honest. I think it's quite. I think it's got some funny moments. All right, might not be the best Christmas special, but it's quite funny. So next one is Frog's Legacy. This is quite a good one. So basically, the gist of it, Dell finds out that there's some inheritance, I believe, in the family, some relative, and the inheritance is supposed to be, well, left, or so he thinks, left to him and Rodney. So then he thinks that he's a millionaire because he's been left, but he doesn't know where the inheritance is. In the episode, he's trying to find, he's just basically trying to find the inheritance through the episode, and yeah, just can't find it. And then eventually he does find it, but it's been buried at sea. So it's been buried at sea, and yeah, so there's no way possibly he gets it. He makes a joke that Rodney's got to go and go swimming to get it, but yeah, it's quite funny actually. I think it's quite an enjoyable one. There's a few other funny moments. Rodney gets a job as as mourner, I think. No, chief. One of them people that walks with the coffins and that. And it's quite funny. Yeah, there's a few funny moments in that one. And then dates is the next one where basically about dates. Trigger gets a date through this dating agency, and then Dell decides to go along as well, and he thinks, oh, I can get a date out of that. So then, he signs up with this agency to find him a date, and then he meets Raquel for the first time. Then goes out on a date with her, but then it ends disastrous because he finds out that, well, she tells him that she's an actress, and then, but she's not. She's actually a stripper. And then they start going out, and then on a night out, he sees, well, she's supposed to be a stripper, but he doesn't know that, and then he realizes it's Raquel, and then she embarrasses him, and then they sort of have an argument, a breakup, and then Raquel goes away, only to come back later on. And yeah, there's a few quite funny moments in that as well. Yeah, it's quite a cool one. Next we've got To Hell and Back. Basically, this is, it's quite a long one actually, To Hell and Back. It's more or less like a film of Only Fools and Horses. Basically, Dell gets offered to go to Amsterdam to smuggle diamonds, and Boise, character in it, and friend Abdul, they say to Dell they're going to pay him 15 grand to smuggle diamonds, and they'll pay him 15 grand to go to get the diamonds. He agrees. Yeah, so he agrees to go, but then Slater, who's the detective in charge, you know, he knows they're on the case, so he's got to find a way to get to Amsterdam, not going through the airport because he knows that Slater's going to be watching the airport, so he decides to go via boat, and he gets Uncle Albert to sail across to Amsterdam in a boat, and not knowing that Albert is either a really bad boat driver or can't actually drive a boat, but yeah, he blabbed about he could drive a boat, and it just turns out really terrible. Anyway, they go to Amsterdam on a boat, end up getting there. Oh yeah, first of all, Dell ends up in Hull, because he ends up in the back of Denzel's lorry, and he gets locked in there, and ends up in Hull. Then he realises he's in Hull, and he's realised he's got to go to Amsterdam. Then calls Uncle Albert to meet him there and get the boat to Hull and Amsterdam. Anyway, goes to Amsterdam, gets the diamonds, manages to come back, but then Slater meets him, takes the diamonds, and then Slater gets arrested, and then Dell and Rodney end up with the 15 grand, but Dell thinks it's counterfeit, throws it out the window, and then, but it's actually real. But then he thinks it's counterfeit, and then throws real 15 grand out the window. And then also they end up with 2 of the diamonds. So yeah, it's quite good. There's quite a lot of enjoyable moments in To Hell and Back. Go on to Jolly Boys Outing now. Yeah, it's basically a Jolly Boys Outing where they go in to Margate. So they organise, Dell, Rodney, and all the characters organise a day out of just lads only going to Margate. And I think things run smoothly. Anyway, they end up organising a trip going to Margate, but then in the end there's disaster struck. The coach ends up blowing up, so they've got no coach, and then they realise they can't get back on the coach because it's blown up, can't get another replacement coach, and then they end up stuck in Margate. They can't go back by a coach, can't go back by a travelling, so realise they've got to stay the night at Margate, and yeah, there's all sorts of fun going on, yeah, and yeah, they get stranded at Margate, get up to a few different things, and then Dell meets up with Raquel again, and I think that's how they get together after that. Yeah, anyway, yeah, so there's all sorts going on. Anyway, yeah, they end up staying at Margate, and then they come home at the end. But there's a few good things. Rodney Come Home is quite good. It's basically about Rodney and Cassandra having arguments. Yeah, it's basically about them mainly, about them breaking up, getting back together, and having all sorts of problems. Yeah, it's quite funny. It's all right. Now going on to Miami Twice. This is another long one, similar to like Hollow Black's like a movie. I think they said it was like, I think they said it's Miami Twice a movie anyway. There's a bit before it that's sort of a build up to it, which is quite funny. And then Miami Twice is basically Rodney's supposed to go away with Cassandra to Miami, but then ends up going with Del because Cassandra can't come. But I think Del planned it all along. They end up going to Miami. Everything's going all right, and then until they there's this mafia boss over in Miami who looks. So Del's playing two roles. He's Del, and he's a Miami boss as well. So he's playing two roles. The Miami boss over in Miami is so Del's playing two roles, Miami boss, and the Miami boss. They say that he's going to be pretend that he's dead. And have Del. Well, Del's going to basically. They see that Del's the same, looks exactly the same as their father, who's a mafia boss, and they say that they're going to get Del to replace him, get killed. So it seems like the other mafia boss has been killed. So they're going to get Del to be the mafia boss, get killed. So it looks like, you know, the mafia boss has got killed, but then obviously the mafia boss hasn't. So they end up stealing Del and Rodney's stuff, and then the mafia gang sort of befriend Del and Rodney, take them back to the house, and then they try and kill Del. All attempts fail, or the few attempts, and then it's only later Del realizes that they think he's a mafia boss. Then they run away. Then the mafia are chasing them. Yeah, and then they try and shoot him. Del and Rodney end up getting away, and the mafia boss get arrested, and then they go home. And yeah, there's a few good things along the way, a few jokes and that. Oh yeah, Mother Nature's Son is about when they basically Peckham Springs, which is Del lies and pretends that there's a Peckham spring. He's got an allotment, I think, and then he pretends that this Peckham Springs is a natural water source in the allotment. And Rodney's friend, who's like a posh guy, has made millions or whatever. Del realizes that and pretends that Peckham Springs is a natural water source in the water, and then it says to Rodney's friend that that's a natural water source, and Rodney's friend thinks that this is an opportunity to make millions, and then Del thinks, oh yeah, going to become a millionaire out of it because if he thinks it's a natural water source, we can supply it and that, not realizing it's actually coming out of a tap water. So then they end up getting a business deal because they think it's a natural water source, not realizing it's tap water. And then yeah, they end up making money from that. And then yeah, so basically ends up selling tap water to the public, not realizing it. And in the yeah, so they do that, and then I think the police see some suspicious activity going on, but they don't get caught anyway. It just basically ends with them just going on a holiday for a break, just getting away. But yeah, it's quite funny. Going into Fatal Attractions, basically Del has a toothache, which is a little problem in it. But basically, he ends up splitting up Raquel because they have an argument with Del, keep going to casinos every night and staying up late. Then Del and Raquel end up splitting up. Del ends up going to chat up a receptionist at the dentist, and then he ends up thinking that she's mad and following him. Then he decides that he wants Raquel back and decides not to go through with it. But then he ends up thinking that the receptionist is stalking him and thinks that she's mad. Then he ends it and ends up going back to Raquel, but then he still thinks that the receptionist is following him. Then they have an argument. And then, oh yeah, there's some funny riots going on as well. And then Dell leaves a voicemail to this receptionist saying, sorry, I decided not to go out with you. Then Raquel finds it, and then at the end, she's arguing with Dell because he thinks he's got away with it, and then she realises it. But he never went through with it anyway, but then she realises that he was going to take someone out. But it's quite funny anyway. Heroes and Villains is really good, where they dress up as Batman and Robin. Very, very funny. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Cassandra and Raquel go away separately to different places, and then Dell and Rodney end up going to this fancy dress while the girls are away, end up dressing as Batman and Robin, end up the car, three-wheel van ends up breaking down, and they end up running through the streets dressed as Batman and Robin because the cars broke down, and they just want to go to the party. Then they end up stopping these criminals trying to rob someone, and it looks quite funny because they're running across the streets dressed as Batman and Robin, and criminals see them running towards them and run away, and I think they're really Batman and Robin. And yeah, there's a lot going on, really, really funny, just so funny. Really a lot of good moments in that as well. We're going to Modern Man. It's basically about Dell gets his book about Modern Man, how to be a modern man and how to treat women and all this and that. And then he decides he wants to have a vasectomy, and it's quite funny. It doesn't go through with it, of course, but there's a lot of funny moments in that. And yeah, so yeah, he wants to have a vasectomy, but then decides not to. But he follows all the things from Modern Man and thinks that's the way to go. Then he decides not to go through it. And then there's Bad Thing. There's a few other funny things in it as well. But then there's quite a sad thing. Cassandra and Rodney can have a baby. Cassandra loses a baby. And it's quite sad at the end. And there's a few other things going on as well. Time on the Hands is the last episode, or you think it's the last episode for 3 more Christmas specials. Time on the Hands, they got this Pocket Marine timekeeper, which they've had for years and years, but they think it's an egg timer. And then Raquel's dad discovers it in their garage, and then they realise, and he says that's worth a lot of money, and then they think that, you know, they've had it for years and didn't think it was worth anything. He discovers it and says it's worth loads of money. Then they take it to be auctioned, and then it turns out that it's worth like 6 or 7 million, and then they become millionaires. And yeah, and there's a good thing where Dell comforts Rodney after Rodney and Cassandra lose a baby. There's a really good, lovely moment where Dell and Rodney, you know, share a good brother moment where he comforts him after losing the baby. And yeah, they become millionaires after discovering the valuable item. Yeah, they become millionaires. And yeah, then they buy a few things. Yeah, and everyone cheers in the pub. They've become millionaires. And yeah, and there's a bit of sad moment at the end as well, where they go back to the flat and realise that they've come from, you know, scraping, you know, becoming not too far off, and, you know, becoming quite poor, and just, you know, not having that much money, and always trying to make a few quid, and then realising that it's all over, and they've finally achieved their dream, you know, Dale's dream of becoming a millionaire. But then you realise he wants to feel like how he used to feel, because he, you know, thinks he's a millionaire, but he wants to feel like he used to feel. Anyway, it's really good. Anyway, it's one of the best episodes. What are we on now? If You Could See Us Now is one that's like 5 years later. Basically, they've become millionaires, but then they've lost it now. Stock and shares or whatever has gone down the pan, and yeah, they've lost everything. So in this episode, it's 5 years after they've lost everything, and they're back to how there was, basically. And then Dell decides, you know, they're trying to make money because, you know, they've lost everything, and they're trying to find ways to make money. and then Dale decides to go on a game show hosted by Jonathan Ross, and because he thinks he can win the money, and then they think it's all a joke, but then he ends up going on the money. He gets to quite a good stage, and then he phones Rodney as his SOS to ask him this question. He gets it wrong, but then they phone him up and said he actually got it right. But then Dale thinks it's Mickey Pearce phoning from the pub, and then tells him to go give the money to charity, not realising it actually the game show, saying he's actually got it right, the answer. They actually got it wrong. He told them the right answer, but they said it was wrong, but actually it was right, and then they tell him it is. But yeah, there's a lot going on in that. It's quite good. Stranger on the Tide. This is not that great of a one, but it's not too bad. Basically, Uncle Albert has died. I think he died in the previous episode. Yeah, Uncle Albert died, and actually the actor did die, Buster Berryfield, back whenever he died. But yeah, they say he's died in this, or the previous episode. And Stranger on the Tide, or Stranger on the Shore, basically they go to Uncle Albert's sort of war reunion, where he was in the war, and they go to that. And then Dell wants to smuggle some loads of alcohol, and then they use Trigger and Denzel to smuggle the wine back to the country, but then they end up smuggling in a immigrant, and yeah, they end up bringing him back, and they pretend that he's Rodney's friend, and they say he's called Gary, and he keeps saying Gary, which is quite funny. He's actually an actor that was in EastEnders. I can't think of the guy's name, but it's quite funny in this. He just keeps saying Gary. So yeah, he got quite a good job. He was just paid to say, keep saying Gary in it. It's quite funny when he actually says it. He just goes, Gary. Which is quite funny. Yeah, so they smuggle in an immigrant, but he thinks he's been kidnapped. And then the people, only were not really, really wealthy, they think he's been kidnapped. And anyway, the immigrant ends up getting free, or going off. I think he just runs off. And then he ends up going on the news, and so they end up saying they've been kidnapped. The photos appear on the news, and then later they go to try and do a deal, Boise and Dell and Rodney, and then they end up meeting Carrie and his wealthy family, and then he explains to him that's the Dell, Rodney and Boise, the ones that kidnapped him. Then they end up getting arrested, and that's basically how it ends. But it's quite funny, yeah. And then the last one, yeah, is Sleepless in Peckham. So it's the last ever one, and the last Christmas special. It's basically, well, the main gist of it, Boise's partner Marlene ends up going missing, and they think Dell, Rodney, has murdered her. Well, first of all, they think Marlene's has run off with Denzel and had an affair, but she hasn't. Then they think Boise's murdered Marlene, because they haven't seen Marlene in ages, and they think that Boise's buried her. They think they even suggest that Boise's murdered Marlene and buried her in the garden, which is quite funny. And then Boise says, I spent so much money on a garden, you think I'd bury a hole? Do you think I'd dig a hole in it? Which is quite funny. Yeah, anyway, they think that Boise's murdered Marlene. It turns out that she's actually just resting because she's had a boob operation to get massive boobs. So she's just basically resting because she's had surgery, but they think that she's murdered, and she appears later on. And then Rodney finds out that he's only half brothers with Dell, because they had different fathers, and so then he discovers that he finds out that his father was different to Dell's, and their surname turns out they're half brothers actually. It's got different fathers, and yeah, it's quite sad, emotional story of him finding out a bit of his past, and yeah, he finds out that. Yeah, and there's a bit of emotion with that. And then in the end, because Cassandra and Rodney lost the first baby, they have another baby, and this time it's all right, and they end up having the baby, and it's all right this time, and it's quite emotional. And then they name the baby after Dell Rodney's mum, which is quite nice. And Yeah, and it all just ends, and that's it. And that's no more after that, unfortunately. We was hoping that there would be more Christmas specials, but yeah, but you never know. I've heard talk that there's other episodes, some episodes of Lost or Hidden Files or whatever. I did there's some episodes that not been on were gonna be on, but then just didn't. But yeah, I don't know. They did a sort of spin-off where it's called Fish and Chips, but it wasn't very good. I mean, it was all right, but not great. Not as great as this. But yeah, that's all the Christmas specials, guys. Hope you guys all enjoy this video, and Merry Christmas. Hope you all having a good time, and yeah, as I said, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more cool videos. Got some more Christmas specials coming up and some more